stories we're following at the top of the hour. Now, in the coming hour, 4 ministers and defense chiefs from Seoul and Washington are set to hold their first 2+2 meeting since 2016. The participants are expected to announce a joint statement surrounding bilateral issues. North Korea's first Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee has publicly denounced the U.S. attempts to reach out to the regime, describing them as a cheap trick. And police in Atlanta have detained a 21-year-old suspect who shot and killed at least 8 people, including 6 women of Asian descent. They're currently looking into the exact motive of the latest shooting. Our top story this morning, North Korea has officially turned down the United States' recent call to the regime for talks, saying there will be no direct communication between Washington and Pyongyang unless sanctions against the North are lifted. Now, meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of State and Defense Secretary are due to kick off their first 2+2 meeting with their South Korean counterparts since 2016. For more, we have our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Da-mi on the line for us. Tommy tells us more.
Right, Morgan, no withdrawal of hostile policies towards Pyongyang means no talks with Washington. This is what North Korea's first Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee said in a statement released on Thursday. She also confirmed that the U.S. had reached out to the North even up to a day before its combined exercise with Seoul through a third country. The White House had been trying to engage in talks with the regime since mid-February, only to be ignored. Choi then said for talks to be established, there should be an appropriate atmosphere in place, making it clear that there'll be no opportunities like those surrounding the Singapore or Hanoi summits. But watchers note that her warning did leave some room for improvement in inter-Korean ties by not specifying what exactly the North wants. The comments also came just a few days after the North Korean leader's sister Kim Yo-jong slammed Seoul and Washington for their regular springtime joint drills.
And Tommy, the statement also comes as the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin are here in Seoul for talks with their South Korean counterparts.
That's right. So recent comments are also seen as a warning aimed at the two allies' cooperation on what the North sees as hostile policies. And at this very moment, 4 ministers and defense chiefs from Seoul and Washington are holding their first 2+2 meeting since 2016. Topics to be covered are coordinated strategy on North Korea, joint efforts, and their alliance. And in the coming hours, the 4 officials are set to announce a joint statement and hold a press conference. Also, Thursday afternoon, the visiting U.S. officials will pay a courtesy call to President Moon Jae-in at the Blue House. There, they're expected to discuss Korean Peninsula affairs as well as pending bilateral issues like Washington's new North Korea policy. That's all I have. Back to you, Morgan.
Thank you. That was our Kim Da-mi reporting. And the man suspected of killing 8 people, including 6 women of Asian descent in Atlanta, is now in police custody. Officers are trying to work out if the suspect's motive was due to an apparent sex addiction or possibly a hate crime against Asian Americans. As of now, though, this reason for committing mass murder remains unclear. Our Kim Yeon-seung reports.
Investigations continue to uncover the motive behind the shooting spree in Atlanta that killed 8 people, 6 of whom were women of Asian descent. The 21-year-old suspect, Robert Aaron Long, is currently being detained at Cherokee County Adult Detention Center and is under questioning. Officials said that it's too early in the investigation to determine the motive, but for now, they said that the shooting seemed to have been driven by the suspect's sex addiction rather than a hatred against Asians.
He apparently has an issue, what he considers a sex addiction, and sees these locations as something that allows him to go to these places, and it's a temptation for him that he wanted to eliminate.
Regardless, the killings have spiked fears among the Asian American community. Advocacy group Stop Asian American and Pacific Islanders Hate has commented that there's a great deal of fear and pain in the Asian community right now.
This is a devastating and heartbreaking day around the country, particularly for Asian Americans who awoke today to the news that 6 Asian American women were killed in 3 separate shootings that clearly were targeting people of Asian descent.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris also spoke out on the issue.
The question of motivation is still to be determined. But whatever the motivation here, I know that Asian Americans are very concerned.
We're not yet clear about the motive, but I do want to say to our Asian American community that we stand with you and understand how this has frightened and shocked and outraged all people.
The Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism reported earlier this month that hate crimes against Asian Americans increased by almost 150% in 16 major U.S. cities from 2019 to 2020, the same period when overall hate crimes dropped 7%. Kim Hyun-seung, Arirang News.
And turning to news on COVID-19, South Korea reported 445 new cases of COVID-19 on Thursday, remaining above the 400 mark for the second straight day. Now, of the new cases, 427 were locally transmitted, with 18 from overseas. There were 2 more deaths, raising the death toll to 1,688. Now, with this, South Korea's total number of cases is now over 97,000. And on Wednesday, more than 18,000 people in South Korea received their first dose of the vaccine, bringing the total number of people inoculated to over 641,000. The World Health Organization is again encouraging the continued use of AstraZeneca's vaccine, saying the benefits outweigh the risks. This comes as the European Medicines Agency will soon release its findings on the vaccine and its potential health risks. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
While some European countries have temporarily suspended the use of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine as a precautionary measure based on reports of blood clots among recipients, the WHO on Wednesday called on countries to continue using it. According to the UN agency, in extensive vaccination campaigns, it's routine for countries to see potential adverse events following immunization. But the WHO says it doesn't necessarily mean the events are linked to the vaccine itself. It called on countries to continue using the AstraZeneca vaccine, saying the benefits outweigh the risks at the moment. The UK's Deputy Chief Medical Officer has been reassuring the public on the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine, saying a probe into a possible link will be announced soon.
There's a lot of evidence emerging now that is reassuring that there is no overall excess signal or increased risk. And I expect, without prejudice to their absolute findings, those to be the final conclusions of the EMA and the MHRA in due course.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Wednesday that he will be receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine.
And I think perhaps the best thing I can say about the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine programme is that I finally got news that I'm going to have my own jab, Mr. Speaker, very shortly. I'm pleased to discover.
Johnson, who is 56 years old, is in the next age group to get a COVID-19 vaccine in the UK. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has sharply raised its growth projection for the U.S. economy for this year. The announcement came Wednesday at the conclusion of the 2-day-long Federal Open Market Committee policy meeting. The Fed also indicated it would maintain interest rates near zero for the next 2 years. Our business correspondent Seon Kyung reports.
The Federal Open Market Committee has sharply raised its growth projection for the U.S. economy for this year to 6.5%. The figure is 2.3 percentage points higher from its December meeting. The Fed also upgraded its 2022 real GDP forecast to 3.3% from 3.2%. The figure corresponds to the OECD's prediction in the organization's latest outlook released earlier this month. In the report, it noted that the significant fiscal stimulus plan, faster vaccination, along with growing demand from its key trading partners would push up U.S. GDP growth. The FOMC also signals that interest rates would remain unchanged for the next 2 years.
Today, the FOMC kept interest rates near zero, will ensure that monetary policy will continue to deliver powerful support to the economy until the recovery is complete.
The interest rate forecast, known as the dot plot, has shown that most FOMC members were expecting to maintain rates near zero through 2023. 4 of 18 members anticipate a rate hike in 2022, and 7 members see a rise in interest rates for 2023. In the December meeting, only one member predicted a rate increase in 2022 and 5 members projected a hike in 2023. The forecasts are presented anonymously by each of the FOMC members. The organization announces dot plot forecasts 4 times per year in March, June, September, and December. In terms of inflation, the central bank expects the figure to be 2.4% this year, above its previous prediction of 1.8%. 서은경, Arirang News.
They are calling it Myanmar's darkest moment. The country's shadow government set up by elected lawmakers says it's eliminating all ethnic armed organizations from its list of terrorist groups as the coup-hit nation approaches its 7th week under military rule. Our Kim Hyo-sun has more details.
A committee representing Myanmar's elected lawmakers who have been unable to take their seats in parliament following the February 1st coup has announced that it will be removing all ethnic armed organizations from the country's list of terrorist groups and unlawful association. The decision comes in the wake of continued violent crackdowns by the military on anti-coup protesters nationwide, which has now killed more than 200 people. The Committee for Representing the Union Parliament issued a statement which condemned all arrests and detentions against the country's unlawful associations as stipulated under Myanmar's Unlawful Associations Act. It also explained that it considers such arrests and charges against the ethnic armed organizations that are fighting for national equity and self-determination as, quote, illegitimate. The committee also expressed its gratitude to such organizations for providing, quote, care and protection to civil servants participating in the anti-coup protests. It also took to Twitter saying the evil must be repelled by united hands. There are over 130 ethnic groups in Myanmar who account for some 40% of the country's total population. Since the country gained independence from Britain in 1948, the military has been clashing with ethnic minorities who have long demanded more autonomy. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
The European Union has agreed to sanction China for the first time in more than 3 decades. EU ambassadors on Wednesday decided to blacklist Chinese officials for seriously violating human rights against China's Uyghur Muslim minority. China has been accused of detaining at least 1 million Muslims in camps in Xinjiang, where torture, forced labor, and sterilization programs are said to take place. Once the sanction is formally approved, 4 Chinese officials and 1 unknown entity will be subject to travel bans and asset freezes. This is the bloc's first sanction against Beijing since the arms embargo imposed in response to the Tiananmen Square crackdown in 1989. The city of Seoul is working to give a facelift to certain streets and neighborhoods that have been left behind by decades of modernization. So far, it's done 10 out of them in the past 3 years. For example, on one of the trendiest streets in the city in Yeonnam-dong, there are cafes and boutique shops and young people hanging out in the park. But at the end of the street, some buildings don't even have gas for heating or cooking and rely on coal briquettes. The city has spent money to equip them with gas and to make them more visually appealing with fresh paint and small repairs. The goal is to make these improvements in a total of 46 areas. Sneakerheads, some collect shoes that help express their identity, and some focus on investing and selling selected items. Resale values of rare sneakers skyrocket into tens of thousands of dollars. There are also online trading platforms that help them buy and sell kicks. Our Kim Sang-min zooms in on this trend.
Enough sneakers to fill up the entire wall. The average price for each pair is around $1,300 compared to their retail value of around $200. These never-worn sneakers are on display for resale, targeting die-hard fans who will pay tens of thousands of dollars for some limited edition models. This pair was first released at a price of $200 in 2005. 16 years later, it's now been sold for around $60,000 on the resale market, up more than 30,000%. In 2019, the global sneaker resale market stood at some $6 billion and is expected to reach $30 billion by 2030. Footwear giants such as Nike and Air Jordan release some of their models in extremely short supply and only through random raffles. Anyone can participate, but not everyone can win.
And with prices skyrocketing, reselling high-value sneakers has become an investment method for some people.
When I'm one of the raffle winners, I decide if I want to wear them or resell. Because resale prices spike, it's a good way to earn extra money. Some of my friends who aren't even interested in sneakers jumped on the raffle just to resell them.
The resale market is thriving thanks to a shift to digital channels, with millennials and Gen Zs being the big players.
I believe it's highly related to social media and the growing needs of younger generations who like to express themselves. Since they are social media adept, it's our biggest marketing tool.
Sneakers are relatively accessible to millennials and Gen Zs. If they have around $100, they can resell them for up to $350 if they win the raffle.
Buyers and sellers can connect online through these kinds of platforms, and as they trade, the price changes in real time, just like stocks. The platforms also provide various services for buyers to pre-examine their products to guarantee that they're 100% genuine. 김성민, Arirang News.
Good morning. It's going to feel like the end of April by the afternoon with plenty of warmth in the air. Morning lows were on the chilly side, but they will skyrocket in a few hours, leading to greater gaps of 10 to 15 degrees Celsius in most parts of the country. We have sunny skies to start the day, then more clouds will be moving as the day goes on for upper regions. But the south will stay sunny all day with high UV levels, so don't forget to apply some sunblock today. Air quality-wise, the dust concentration level will be lower than the past few days, but central parts of the country and Gyeongsang-Pukto province will still have to endure polluted skies. But we can expect much better air quality tomorrow. In fact, it's going to be even warmer in Seoul tomorrow. Then nationwide rain on Saturday will bring season norms to the country. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
That will do it for us at this hour on Arirang News. Thank you for watching.